is everyone? Isn't this exciting?
Yeah.
You may be delighted to know this is the first in-person FYC event that HBO has been able to host for this amazing show. So we're all very lucky to be here. We have a lot of amazing people to bring out. And my name is Stacy, by the way. It's so nice to see you. I'm going to waste no time in bringing them out right now. Actor Mark Indelicato. Hello. Oh, hi, I like your outfit. Actor Hannah Einbinder. Hello, yes, right there, next to your friend. Emmy winner Jean Smart.
Yeah.
There she is. Yes, I want to stand up too. Right here. Just like Deborah received. Isn't that wonderful? Well, we're assuming that Paul's not going to get a standing ovation because we sat down, so we'll see what happens. Co-creator, co-showrunner, executive producer, writer, and actor Paul Downs. That was pretty good. You got a semi standing ovation.
Thank you so much.
That was so sweet.
I needed that.
Actor Carl Clemens Hopkins. Hello, Carl. And last but not least, actor Christopher McDonald. Hello, Christopher.
Good evening.
So nice to see everyone on the stage and in the audience. And I wanted to congratulate all of you on receiving 15 Emmy nominations this year. Amazing. And 3 wins, including lead actress, directing, and outstanding writing. Very, very well done. And at all the events I've been hosting lately, I also want to extend a thank you to making television during COVID. This is no small feat. You kept everyone safe, including yourselves, your staff, your writers, so thank you so much. We desperately needed this show, so thank you. Really appreciate it. So before we talk about hacks, I wanted to talk a little bit about comedy. And I wanted to know what your earliest comedy influences were. The thing or the people or a program or a movie that made you laugh. And I'm looking at you, so you're gonna start.
Sure, you know, the first stand-up show I ever saw live was Paula Poundstone.
Ooh, very good.
And Paula Poundstone is one of the many female comedians that Jen Statsky, Lucia Aniello, and I talked about when we were on a road trip 6 years ago. And we were like, we need to tell the story of someone like her who, you know, is as funny as so many of her male counterparts, but maybe not as well known as many of the men.
Those shoulder pads, though.
I mean,
Seriously.
the looks alone.
The looks
you know,
alone.
you gotta give it up. So she was something I remember watching. I used to watch, I think it was called Premium Blend on Comedy Central, like a stand-up segment on Comedy Central, and I loved watching that. So it was that, and truly watching Mrs. Doubtfire like 15 times, and like my first foray into making people laugh was just doing an impression of Robin Williams, you know?
Can you do that for us tonight?
I don't,
Layla, you get back in your cage. Don't make me get the hose. Hello.
Oh my God, it's like she's in the room with us right now.
That wasn't Mrs. Doubtfire, that was one of his many calls, you know?
I do remember that. Thank you. Those was a myriad comedy influences you just shared with us. Carl, tell me about your influences. If you can find your microphone.
There it is. My dad used to have this Red Fox record.
I think a lot of our dads probably all have the
That's
same.
all I need to say. I just remember I felt like I was being invited to laugh at things with adults that ordinarily I wouldn't have been invited to. And also, there was a lot of my family is ministers, and I remember that record would make people laugh that I didn't even know had teeth. Because they're very Baptist and very serious. But yeah, I love that record.
That's great. Christopher?
Richard Pryor? Anyone?
Yeah.
So funny, so outrageous, and wow, I saw him once live. I was blown away. And then my second favorite, Don Rickles. Because
Right.
he was, what do they call him, Mr. Charming or something? He would just rip you to pieces, and I would be, splitting a gut while he was just ripping me apart. So anyway, the great Don Rickles in Vegas was one of those kind of bucket moments. So there it was.
R.I.P. for sure. And Jean, how about you?
Well, I mean, when I was a kid,
Do you have a microphone?
so not
I could hear you.
Hello.
There you go.
I liked Phyllis Diller when I was a kid. I just thought she was hysterical. I'd never seen a woman do anything like that, and she looked like she was having the best time. And I dressed up as her at a costume party when I was about 11 years old. I would love to have a picture of that. But yeah, I mean, I never thought about pursuing something like that. But and of course, I watched Soupy Sales, and none of you can remember.
We know who Soupy Sales is.
For some reason, and I know this is going to sound sacrilegious, I was not a fan of Lucille Ball. Stone her. I remember as a child very specifically watching that show. I love to watch it now. It's very nostalgic, and I just love it. It reminds me of a wonderful time in my life. But I remember thinking, why is she pretending to be stupid? Why is she acting so stupid? She's being really stupid. It made me very uncomfortable as a child that she was doing that. But yeah, Phyllis, I loved Phyllis.
So, good choice. Hannah?
I many, but I would say probably Jim Carrey. Gene Smart. Did I say Jim Carrey? Weird. I thought
Gene Smart, Pet Detective was a really good movie.
Lost in the J, but yeah, I love Jim Carrey. Super hyperactive kid, so just like all of the
So did you
physical.
torment your family with Ace Ventura impressions?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling.
The Mask and Liar, which I mean, like when you not to like be like, what's the deal with Jim Carrey movies? But like, it really is that at a certain point by like Liar, they just were like, okay, Jim Carrey, but lawyer, go. Like they just were like plugging what he was doing into various professions and things, which worked when I was a kid. And to this day. So yeah, probably Jim Carrey.
That's a good one. And finally, the colorful gentleman at the end.
Hello. I think that it was Sandler for me, but it was more of a Happy Gilmore moment.
Interesting. Happy Gilmore. Interesting choice. Shooter McGavin is here with us tonight.
It was very bad. Like I saw Chris McDonald was like, shoot up! It was very bad. And I know that he gets out a lot, and that was what it was for me.
I love it. It's a lot of influences and all wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing those. So Paul, oh, it's neat. My chair swivels. I can turn. Ooh, I can turn. I read a review of Hacks last spring that there was one line that stuck with me, and the reviewer said that, I don't know if it was a man or woman, he, she, or they said that they thought the show was very hard on Hannah, very hard on her as the protagonist, which I thought was interesting. And it was interesting too to think about the twist that you guys employed to talk about cancel culture. And in some ways, there's like a broadcast version of the show where it's actually the veteran comedian who tweets the bad thing and has to have the woke young person come in and sort of teach her how to not do that. So I'm curious, why did you choose this narrative structure? Because it is, to me, more impactful. And what are you trying to say about cancel culture? Because in the pilot, you essentially have your character say, this is BS, people should be forgiven for this stuff. So tell me what you think.
About cancel culture? Wow.
Yes. In 5 words or less.
Well, you know what's interesting? When we were on that road trip, and we were talking about female comedians who didn't get their due. We were talking about a lot of different women like Paula Poundstone and Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers, of course. And Piece of Work had come out a few years before that, and it was the kind of thing where people like me, honestly, had seen her do red carpet stuff, and I didn't realize the legacy she had in comedy. And so we were kind of like, how do we tell the story of these women whose shoulders we all as comedians, the shoulders we stand on? How do we tell that story and have that same kind of experience for a character? Well, we need to get a character who's young, and we need to force that character to work for someone who she should have more reverence for, and who she
Someone
has
who
to
maybe would have
understand.
only known Joan from Fashion Police, but not from her together.
Exactly.
Right.
Or, someone who hadn't heard of Phyllis Diller, let's say. So for us, we just needed to get her to have to take that job, more so than anything particularly about the current state of cancel culture. And I think the other thing, in talking about those women and the struggles that they had, I think, one of the things that we're investigating is, it's called cancel culture now, but for so long, truly, Salem witch trials. It's like it's been happening for so long.
This is not a new phenomenon.
No, it's not a new phenomenon, and especially not. That's right. It's true. She's a descendant of a accused witch. Okay, so this is very kismet. But we really wanted to say, why is it that women are discouraged in so many ways in the arts, when honestly, straight white male people are encouraged, and so
Like
it was
Lenny
that.
Bruce would have probably been canceled many, many, many times based
Exactly.
on the inflammatory things he said back in the day.
Exactly. So we tried to make it something that felt more universal and timeless and not necessarily rooted in today. And in fact, even though this is a show about comedians who are observational and oftentimes would probably be really referential to what's happening in current day, we try not to do that. We actually try to avoid doing that so that it's a song you can play over and over again. So it's a show you can watch in 20 years and be like, oh, I still relate to that, and it's not just a joke about X, Y, Z. Can't think of anything current. Can't think of anything current at all.
So it's evergreen is what you're trying to say. You're wanting to keep it
I
evergreen.
hope so. That's what we're
Yes.
trying to do.
Well, you did. It's very, very well done. And it feels very current, but it also feels very timeless. So thank you. Thank you for your women's work. So Jean, hello. Nice to see you again. So I want to say congratulations on this role, but I also kind of bristle at this idea that this was a comeback for you, because for me, you never left. So I just want to say that this isn't really a comeback, it's just you doing an amazing job. So congratulations.
I didn't know anybody called it a comeback.
I read some people use that word, which I was slightly offended on your behalf. Because that implies
Thank
that you
you.
left, and you
Thank
didn't.
you.
And Paul, it's so funny to be turning back and forth. You wrote a really nice essay in the Hollywood Reporter last spring where you were talking about it's sort of the onus is on us to sort of catch up to this performance. It's not her sort of trying to ingratiate us into it. And I'd love to know what aspects of Deborah felt most familiar to you, but which of her personality traits felt like new territory? And then thusly, what was most difficult about crawling into this person's skin?
It's hard to describe any of it as difficult in the sense that it was all so enjoyable. Seriously, I meant it, and I said this in a couple of interviews, that if I could have sat down with a piece of paper and described my next job that would have been my dream job, this ticked off every box. Certainly there are things that I kind of identify with Deborah. I tend to keep my feelings close to my chest. I sometimes use humor to deflect, difficult, feelings, difficult situations. But her bitterness, I don't identify with at all. Her holding a grudge kind of thing, I don't understand that. I think I'm a little nicer than her.
You seem to be.
And she's actually a good person. She's actually a nice person, and she treats, people, who work for her kindly and everything, until they piss her off, and then, all bets are off. But
Did you know many female comedians in your career? Did you work with people who were living this life at all?
no, I didn't. I also want to say I was also a fan of Joan Rivers, especially early on in her career. The woman was amazing. She was like a machine gun in that sense, a little bit like Robin Williams, that mind that just, she'd spit out 5 jokes at a time, knowing that at least one was going to get you to guffaw, and by the time you caught your breath, she'd set 5 more your way. She really was amazing, and I feel bad for younger people who have only seen her when she was being, kind of catty on the red carpet, because that wasn't really what made her famous and brilliant. I mean, I always liked, I mean, I was sort of a family clown when I was a kid, and I liked, yeah, I mean, you look at family photos and everybody else is standing there smiling, and I'm going, you know, so I don't know what that means.
Probably most people in this room had similar situations.
I don't know what that meant, but yeah, no, she's one of the most complicated characters I've ever played, because her relationship to every single person in her life is so different. So different, and it's, I love that. I find that fascinating.
Well, what's really special about what you've done is you created sort of a tribute to all these kind of forgotten women, but it feels totally like a new person that I haven't seen before, which is really hard to not sort of mimic either the mannerisms or the stylings of some of these women, like Elaine Boozler, and a lot of these really
love
great
Elaine Boozler.
She was great too.
Love Elaine Boozler.
But you really created a brand new character, and I think that's
Thank
really
you. Well, I
original.
owe that to
Yes.
our writers.
No.
Yeah.
We owe that to her. We owe that to
It's a team effort.
her.
It's
Yeah.
a team effort. Well, thank you for sharing that. That is really
Thank you.
wonderful. And Hannah, hello. Congratulations on your first TV role.
Oh, thanks.
No pressure at all, by the way.
Thanks.
And you've spent many years, you're obviously not a very maturely aged person, but you have been working in comedy for a long time, honing a stand-up act, which is so great. By the way, YouTube, some of her stuff, very funny, really funny.
It's really funny.
It's really funny. Very smart, very one-woman show, cerebral, hilarious, good
I
stuff.
saw her live Sunday night. She blew me away.
Very, very good. Nice. I'd love to know how much of your training as a comedian, which is so much centered on writing your own material, how much has that served you being in this environment, but how much of a learning curve did you have to face in the idea that you were sort of giving over some of the creative control to this guy and his team, and you weren't writing your own material?
Yeah. Well, I mean, being a comedy writer and stepping into the role of a comedy writer was like,
It's really difficult, I'm sure.
well, you know, I was going, okay, the process, it's downloaded. And also, like, the material, I always say, like, it is a credit to the direction and the material itself that a novice was able to come in and sort of grasp it. It is familiar to me because Ava is sort of like an amalgamation of various characters and people that I encounter, and Pauluccia and Jen and I just come from a similar world, being performers. They've all been live performers at some point, and at one point or another, Paul currently, you know, like, so.
And do you see the difference in the writing when you know the people who've written it are also performers? Can you tell?
I mean, yeah, a lot of our writers are performers, or have been at some point. Almost everyone in the writer's room, you know. And so it does help. I mean, so much, yeah.
Well, you did a great job.
Oh, thanks.
It's a big, not, I wouldn't say burden, but a big responsibility to carry the show alongside this incredible person. So really, your scenes together are very
She's
magical.
tall, so I can just
She's
hide
very tall,
behind
yes. You did a good job hiding. And Christopher, hello, nice to see you again. So we have grown to love your performances as total assholes in so many projects. So thank you. And how does it feel when people are like, we need a total asshole Christopher McDonald? Does that make you feel good?
We need an asshole.
McDonald!
It's, listen, every story has to have one, because you have to have that kind of contention going on. And he does move the plot quite a bit, because, you know, if I didn't kick her out for Friday and
That's
Saturday
right.
nights, you know.
Well, I did want to say this is a new version of that archetype, because this person's very vulnerable. We see him, you know, having romantic feelings for this person. What do you think it is about Deborah that is so problematic, but also so attractive to Marty?
First of all, she's gorgeous.
She's, well, clearly, yes.
But inside and out, and we have a history. It goes back, and we have had, you know, little, you know, tete-a-tetes here and there. But when you're at the Palmetto for 25 years, I mean, you're going to have these ups and downs, and it's not really my decision. It's, you know, a board I have to answer to. So I just think there's a romantic thing, because God, she's funny. She makes me laugh. And we have that history, and that makes it really good. And I really am a fan of hers. And I said that's in the like the episode you saw tonight. But she hates me. But which is kind of fun though. At the same time, it's kind of like push me forward kind of thing. Anyway, that said, I think that's the joy of playing Marty. I may look like the bad guy, but the fact that they're right, he's got a heart of gold, and he's truly heartbroken when he has to tell her this news after having his way with her. So, oh, by the way, you're done. Wow. So anyway, what I'm saying? It's just basically, it's written so beautifully, and it starts with the words. And we, as an actor, you can't. I've been at this a long time. You can't really to live in that world where you guys write and make all this stuff so magical, and then you read it on a page and go, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. So it's such a joy to play. It's such great writing, and it's such great people to play with that I am very, very, very grateful. So
I think Marty and Deborah have a mutual respect in the sense that I think they probably both respect the fact that they both really worked hard to get where they were. He
They're
probably,
still thriving.
He probably worked his way up from being a dealer to then being a pit boss and then being and all that. And so they respect that, besides having an attraction. But she only sleeps with him when he's not married.
I did notice that the writers make
She
sure
only
that
sleeps with him
broken up.
between marriages.
Exactly. So you have to have
I'm a
rules.
good girl.
Thank you, Christopher, for
Thank
sharing.
you.
That's
Thank you.
wonderful. And Mark, hello. Nice to see you.
hi.
Hi.
Hello.
So some people may not know about Mark that he started acting when he was 6 years old. I know. Can you imagine how cute he was? And he broke out as an actor on Ugly Betty. You were so great on Ugly Betty.
Thank you so
As
much.
the very precocious Justin. So
Really long time.
it was a really long time ago. I'd love to know in what ways playing this character has felt like the next logical step in your career, and what do you enjoy about being in this sort of non-broadcast environment where you can, sort of delve into darker material, it's a little bit more adult. What have you enjoyed about that?
Thank you for that question. Very, very great question.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think that when I was younger, I had no concept of what television was at all, like what I was doing at all, like even if there were streaming services at the time. However, now I think that, I've had such an amazing time. These people have surrounded me with love and affection and genuine, just like we want to collaborate with one another. And that's a want. That's not something that like we are forced to do. It is a want. And I think that since Ugly Betty, that was the last time that I had been in a situation where I really wanted, or was in a situation where I was like, oh, I want to collaborate with these people.
You feel valuable to the collaboration as well.
Well, yeah, you feel heard. I mean, that is, that's the pinnacle of collaboration, is that you feel heard. And I think that was the main thing in coming to Hacks, where I felt like everyone was just there to have a good time. And, and by have a good time, I mean, we were all there to make friends, but we were also there to do a job. And we were, I felt very, very helped along the way.
Oh, that's nice. Well, it starts at the top. So clearly you and your amazing partner.
And
have
Paul
said-
and Lucia and Jen really helped me in so many ways. I mean, there was a day, and I'll say it, where I texted Jen and was like, "It's okay if you guys want to fire me."
Something showrunners love to hear, right?
I just feel like I just really want to do my best job, but maybe I'm not doing it, and maybe it's okay if you fire me. And Jen texted me back and was like, "What?" And then I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." I adjust.
Everybody has those moments.
I-
Well, congratulations, and I'm happy to see you thriving. And I have to say, in the green room, there's a palpable love and energy for everybody, and that's not always the case. So that's wonderful for all of you. And then finally, of course, Carl, didn't forget you. And I have to say, Carl, you're nothing like Marcus, which means you're an incredible actor.
Tell everyone you know.
I
loans, so
I rewatched the show this week, and one of my favorite scenes is episode 3 when Ava is asking for Marcus's help about her condo situation, and he says it's his quote curse to be helping her because he doesn't want her to miss out on the financial opportunity. And for me, I feel like that scene is very emblematic of the burden that he seems to carry, sort of taking care of everybody, making sure everything gets done. And I was wondering, where do you think that comes from for him? Because we see him struggling, he has his potential romance, but he's sort of being tentative, and we see that great moment with his mom at the end where he feels like he needs love, but he doesn't really know from whom. And I'm wondering, where do you think this conflict comes from for him?
That's really great. I think, well, and talking to Jen Paul and Lucia before, and what we found in the scripts of season 1, there is his relationship with his mother is the relationship that you see is relatively new. She wasn't necessarily that welcoming to who he was, and also we know that his relationship with his father was something that he has at least some type of resolution about, but he is no longer alive. So I can only craft that, if he's growing up this gay guy in this household, one of the things that a lot of us do as queer children or adolescents or whatever, especially if we don't feel that we're going to be accepted, is overachieve and start putting out fires and taking care of everyone and taking care of this. And if I can create a perfect world around me, then I will then be made perfect, because I am imperfect, I am flawed, I am not worthy of these things. So I think between that and his aversion to, therapy.
She sort of gets from Deborah,
I think that's one of the things they bond over, is how dumb the whole thing is. But I'm excited, not to give too much away, but that factor is explored in season 2 as well. And so I'm just really grateful to have a character that, with something to do.
We look forward to that as well.
In my experience as a larger framed Black individual, it's kind of, I've been a hangman. Bodyguard. I got to pull a young woman off of Usher Raymond once in 2006. That was really great. Usher Raymond, he's a R&B singer, and in 2006.
Usher Raymond.
His name is Usher Raymond.
I thought it was like a parade float or something. Just someone off of Usher Raymond?
It's also a
Next to the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, Usher Raymond. No, that was about it.
Well, we're happy to see you thrive.
He's been in a couple of productions of Hamilton.
Yes, your niece's favorite musical. The one the car just can't stop playing.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It was really poignant. Can't wait to see what happens for him next season. So, I have a last question for the group, and it's about this great interplay in the series, which is sort of the Hollywood versus Vegas thing, which to me feels like the insular liberal elite versus the masses. And Deborah talks about, I have the people from Florida filling my seats. I'm the person who knows what people want to see. So I'm wondering, what do you think the show tells us about what Hollywood gets wrong and what Vegas gets right, and what the two businesses can learn from each other? Because they really are distinct, thriving businesses, but in very different ways. Maybe you can answer that, or at least you can be the first one.
Sure. I don't know the answer, to be honest, but I think part of it is that, Deborah's point of view is you can't take back a laugh, and a laugh is a laugh.
No matter who it comes from.
No matter who it comes from or how you get it. And I think one thing that's interesting is, one thing that we wanted to explore in the show is, and I don't know if this is answering your question about Hollywood versus Vegas, maybe it does. We wanted to explore cool kid comedy, because there is cool comedy and then there's uncool comedy, and it's kind of like, what does that mean? What
stuff our
is
parents
that?
like to watch versus stuff we think is cool, but we actually sort of like our parents' comedy too, but
That's
we
the
don't
thing,
like to
right?
admit that we like.
That's the thing. I was actually visiting the East Coast this summer when there was that moment when there was no COVID, and it was a great 2 weeks. It was. And my dad was describing Harpo Marx putting his leg in this woman's hand, and he was describing it and tearing up, and made me watch it. And I have to tell you something. I laughed until I cried watching this thing that I was like, what? He puts his leg in a woman's hand? That's problematic. You know, it was like, this is
Can't do that now.
But so I think that we wanted to explore the fact that there, you know, is room for everything, and that there should be no such thing as cool comedy, even though it's hard not to be judgmental. I don't know if I answered that at all.
Well, Hannah, in your comedy career as a stand-up, do you find yourself writing content that you hope everyone will enjoy, or do you find yourself thinking, well, only people under 32 are going to get this, but I think it's funny, so I'm going to do it anyway? Like, what's that push-pull like for you?
Oh, wow. I mean, I think about this every day, and have thought about it since the beginning of my journey to write comedy. There are many answers to this question. I never want something that feels too reference heavy. So like you were saying, like I do think that there is an inherent evergreen nature to things that are more sort of accessible for everyone. But I will say, you know, because I just came right before we started shooting, I was on the road, I was in Florida, I was, you know, all over the country, middle, south, other directions. And I don't change my act depending on where I am, but it is received differently, and that's okay. Like,
Where was it received poorly?
I mean, randomly, I had an off night in Chicago, but that was like,
Really?
yeah, that was just like, that was in my head. And I wouldn't be mad at Chicago for that. It's like the hub of weirdo alternative comedy. It is. So that was just it was also huge theater, it was pitch black. I was just like, I can't connect. It's a whole, anyway.
Well, COVID makes it hard too, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, but I mean, honestly, Florida, we did 4 cities in Florida, fabulous.
Wow.
So to answer your original question, really good. A lot of different. By the way, I'm like, to me, Hillary Clinton is a Republican. Like, I am a communist. Like, so I'm not changing my material for that. Best believe. But it's like our show explores this. This is also something that I believe. The Vegas Hollywood thing. It's like, a laugh is a laugh, Mel Brooks said in a recent Vanity Fair article, that we are the jesters, not the kings. You know, a laugh is a laugh, and those laughs are valuable if you bring someone joy. That's a great thing, but I do think that you have to be intentional, because we're getting to a place where we can now examine what we are laughing at, who we are laughing at. And that is what I think my generation of comedians is giving more of a care about. Yeah, I do, yeah.
And before we run out of time, I'd love, Jean, for you to weigh in. What have you learned about comedy making the show that you hadn't thought about before? Either the sort of mechanics of a joke, the way it's told, the strategy behind, because we see Deborah taking notes along, you know, she says something funny and she writes it down. What have you learned that has stuck with you, that has made you appreciate the art form?
Well, I was just thinking about what Hannah was saying, is I think that we're on a pendulum right now, which is a good, healthy pendulum, where we are now questioning how we get humor from possibly at other people's expense. That's one thing I've always taught my children from the time they could understand anything I was saying, was that don't ever, ever get your pleasure from somebody else's pain. Do not ever get entertainment from somebody else's discomfort. But at the same time, I do think that we have lost our sense of humor. But that's okay, we're learning, and I think that hopefully the pendulum will swing to a point where we all can respect each other and have our sense of humor again. I think one of the most fun things about our show is the kind of the generational difference between our attitudes. I mean, because I personally agree, and I think Deborah would agree with me, that I think a lot of people just go for shock value and comics, and there's a huge difference between getting people to laugh at something because it is so shocking what you said, It's either very blue or just very inappropriate, and people will laugh. They will laugh, and they might laugh big, but it's coming from shock. It's not coming from genuine, I recognize that this is a really funny thing. That's the thing I love about her live act, is that she is so clever and so individual and so specific, and never is gross or inappropriate, and it's all cerebral and hilarious. And I think when you look at really good comics, even the ones who sometimes get blue when they do nightclubs and stuff, but their really brilliant stuff is it's just clever. It's very, very, very clever.
And if
So
your
just
laughs are
shocking.
dependent on hurting people, maybe just write better jokes. Maybe
Yeah.
just try to be funnier. That maybe
Yeah,
isn't.
it's harder.
Right, it's harder. Right.
But that's okay.
That's
You
right.
know, it doesn't cost anything to make it better.
That is true. And I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I think we've learned a lot. You're all so smart and kind. And thank you so much for making this show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming. Please enjoy the reception outside. Bye. Be safe. Get your booster.